Cheaper by the Dozen 2, starring Steve Martin and Bonnie Hunt. It is a sequel to the 2003 version of Cheaper by the Dozen, so it is a sequel to a remake. There are two other iterations of Cheaper by the Dozen. One from the 50s, specifically 1950, and there's one from 2022 with Zach Braff. Both of these other iterations of Cheaper by the Dozen did not get a sequel. This one did. I think it was by far the most financially successful of all the Cheaper by the Dozens. I reviewed the first one last week, and it was fine. It was fine. This one is a little bit worse, but it's also, like, it's comparable. I didn't love it, but I might still give it barely a pass yet. I'm not sure, but I gave the number one 5 out of 10. So, 5.5 out of 10. So there's a little room to still give it a passing grade if we give it lower than. But anyway, let's look at the shit. Let's look at the Cheaper by the Dozen 2 Rotten Tomatoes score. Ooh, I thought it was actually a little higher than this. And by higher, I thought it was 8%. It's 6%. 6% Cheaper by the Dozen 2 gets. That is rough. And then it's a 57% audience score, so the audience is a little bit kinder to these films, clearly. Let's read the critics' consensus. A sequel to a remake, as I said. Cheaper 2 wastes its solid cast in scenes of over-the-top predictable humor. I can't say I disagree with that, honestly, so yeah, I can't say I disagree with that. Because like the first one, even though I think it's even worse, I didn't laugh very many times, like about 3 or 4 times, similar amount of times to the first one. But yeah, I just think it's good. Like, kids, I feel like I would have liked this as a kid, and I liked the first one as a kid. So I feel like adults have a hard time grasping this. Like, there's kids movies, then there's family movies, you know? And this is more of, like, yes, it's a family movie, but not all members of the family might not all enjoy it, depending on how old you are. But you never know, right? But, yeah, not that funny to me overall, just like the first one. 6%, but let's say the average rating of the critics, it would be 3.7 out of 10, so it would go up quite a bit from 6% if you just go by average rating. Still not good, though, obviously. And then the average rating for the audience is 3.4 out of 5, so that would go up to 68%. I'm not good at math, but I can do that math. Alright. Let's read some reviews. I'll read a few bad ones, and then we'll try to find some of the few good ones. This is definitely a family trip to stay home and skip. Okay, I get it. It's bad. There's something pernicious about a toxic mix of sitcom and snickering sex jokes getting packaged and effectively sold as wholesome fun for the family. I don't think that's the problem with it. They were trying to, make jokes for the kids and for the adults. The problem is most of the jokes for the adults weren't funny. And same with the ones for the kids. But again, I laughed at a few jokes, like 4 or so, but that's not very good for a runtime of like an hour and 38 or whatever it is. It'll tell me here, actually, how long is this movie? Hour and 34, so I was close. Ooh, let's see. Let's read another bad review. A sequel every bit as bland, forced, and flat as the generic 2003 comedy which spawned it. Honestly, it's very similar, even though the plots are different. Very similar beats, story beats, and feels, and like similar comedy, Basically the same movie, but done differently. Not a rehash, but still, definitely some elements that are similar about this one and the first one, for sure. Let's look at a good review. Let's try to find a good review. It's hard. Here's a good one. For the most part, director Adam Shankman keeps the mayhem comprehensible. So the plot is basically, well, at least you can understand what's going on for the most part. That's basically their review of it. And I also agree with that. Like, it's not that hard to follow. I think I have a few notes on things that maybe didn't make sense, but it's not like you're gonna get lost in this plot. Oh, running. Oh, here's another bad one. Running a painfully long 100 minutes. I guess it says only 94 minutes here, but maybe it's actually more like 100 minutes if you take account into the bloopers and the credits. Maybe that's what it is. It aims to please. Oh, sorry, no, I read that wrong. This is a good review from Randy Cordova. This guy his picture looks like David Cross, but it's not. I don't think it is him. This is, as I said, Randy Cordova. It aims to be a pleasant and good-natured, which it is. Not pleasant and good-natured. It aims to be pleasant and good-natured, which it is. There are enough laughs scattered throughout to keep everything moderately amusing, and the cast is likable. I agree about the cast. I disagree about the enough laughs. But, they're trying. Bonnie Hunt and Steve Martin, again, are basically carrying the movie. They have, the best lines and best parts. Eugene Levy's a good addition, honestly. If you're going to pick another comedy great, Eugene Levy's a good pick. Eugene Levy is unfortunately in a lot of bad movies like this one, but he is good. He is a solid actor, and very funny, and Canadian icon. But let's see here. Mamma Mia. Here we go again. Ooh, they're making a third Mamma Mia. I'm getting off track here. Okay, so that's the Rotten Tomatoes page. Ooh. So let's look at the IMDb page. Ooh, cheaper by the dozen too. What a great idea to make a sequel to a fucking remake. Okay. 5.5 out of 10 is what it gets. So, that's more like the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. So that's not surprising. The popularity is going down. What a surprise. That this doesn't have longevity. The movie Cheaper by the Dozen 2 is no longer as popular as it once was. Who would have thought? So let's look at the cast. Of course, we said it. Steve Martin, Bonnie Hunt. We know it. They're in it. Hilary Duff's in it again. She's putting it all in there. She's doing a good job. I always think her performances, even though she's often playing the same character, are stellar. Eugene Levy, as I said, he's Jimmy Murtaugh. So I'll go over the plot very basically. So Steve Martin is realizing that his kids are starting to grow up and move away and stuff. So he's like, let's take them all to the good old lake for one last good old cabin camping time. And so they go there and they find out that Eugene Levy, who they establish in this movie, that they've had a running relationship with him, that they always compete and his family always wins this big cup they have at the lake each year. And now Eugene Levy owns the whole lake almost, except for a couple of houses, and he's a big deal. And it's basically like a pissing contest between Eugene Levy and Steve Martin throughout the movie. And they're constantly competing, and the premise isn't that bad, and I do like that they changed the storyline from the first one, but it's just the main problem, and this is what the main problem with is in basically all bad comedies. It's not funny enough, as I've already said. Probably gonna keep saying it because it's true. Carmen Electra is in this. Yes. Tom Welling is back as Charlie. Piper. All the kids, I think, are back again. They might have recast some of them, but I can't tell because there's so many fucking kids. And even more so now, because Jimmy Murtaugh, Eugene Levy's character, he has 8 kids, so there's even more characters to try to keep track of, which I think is annoying. And that's basically all of the act. Oh, Taylor Lautner is in this one. Shark Boy, and of course Jacob from Twilight. And he was in that show Cuckoo that I liked. It was funny. Andy Samberg started that show, and the first season, I like Andy Samberg, but I didn't really like the first season. And his name was Cuckoo, and the show was called Cuckoo. But then Andy Samberg left after the first season, and they brought in Taylor Lautner basically as the replacement. And I liked him better in it. I think the show was better when Taylor Lautner got brought on. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. That's a different thing than what we're talking about right now. But more like this. So obviously Cheaper by the Dozen is like this. And also obviously the other Cheaper by the Dozen is like this. And also obviously yet the other Cheaper by the Dozen from the 50s is also like this. It's supposed to be the best one. It has a 7. It has a 7 out of 10 apparently. And then also the Pacifier is like this. Well, of course, I've seen the Pacifier. I saw it in the theaters. I think it's pretty bad, but you know, Vin Diesel, he making movies. He made that movie. That's all you can say about it. Moving on. I think that's all. Oh wait, no, we have to look at the box office information. Of course, I bet this movie made money. Ooh, yes, it sure did. $60 million budget, which is, you know, like not the biggest budget, but not small budget. And the gross worldwide is $130 million. So they nailed it. Over half. That's a success financially, not critically. But who cares when it's making that money? The studio sure fuck don't. Or you would think. I don't think they were making this one thinking it was going to sweep the Oscars or anything. Cheaper by the Dozen 2. I don't think that was their intention with this film. I think the idea was just to make some gosh darn money. But yeah, that's that. The IMDb page and the Rotten Tomatoes page. And now I have my own notes on the movie. On this little device here. Known as an iPhone. My old ass iPhone. Oh, okay. And so that's my hook notes. We're not there yet. Let's go to the Cheaper by the Dozen 2 notes. So they moved back to Chicago. Yeah, I was confused because at the end of the movie, maybe they did move to Chicago and they showed it in the first movie, but I didn't get that. I thought that they went back to Midland, into the country house. I did not get that at all. So maybe I'm just dumb, but I was confused by that. What happened with the football game? Yeah, so Steve Martin's like all pumped about getting all the kids together for this football game, and only the one kid, Sarah, ends up doing the football game. But then they don't show the football game. Did they not have it because it was just him and Sarah? Or was it against somebody else? I was a little confused by that. The storytelling sometimes in this is a little off for me. Bonnie Hunt and Steve Martin carry it, but just barely. Because, like I said, it's not that funny, but they're doing the best that they can with the material. You can tell these are veterans in the comedic industry, or whatever you want to call it, the film industry, but they're doing their best with the material. That's all I'll say about it. Moving on, Eugene Levy is a little bit creepy towards the mom. Okay, they do this a few times with the mom, and I don't like it. It creeps me out. They did it in the first movie, but with Regis Philbin. And that one might have been a little bit more gross, actually. Because she's on the talk show with Regis Philbin. Whatever it's called. Good Morning America. I forget. But whatever. That talk show with him and Kelly. I don't even know her name. That's not important. The point is, he calls her yummy. And is like, even though you shot out 12 kids, you're really yummy. Or something like that. And it's just like, why do they always have to say that? It's like, oh, he's basically saying, it's like, it's amazing you don't look gross. And it's just like, I don't like that. And then this one, Eugene Levy's like, you look really good for having 12 kids or something like that. They say that again. And it's just like, you don't need to say that. It's not polite. And maybe it was sort of, they were trying to make you not like Eugene Levy a little more at that beginning part. Because you're not supposed to like him in the movie until, of course, the character arc when he redeems himself eventually. But it takes basically the whole movie, of course, predictably enough. But yeah, my point is, what were we even talking about on this note here? Yeah, my point is that Eugene Levy was a little bit creepy towards the mom. Moving on. The cook would catch on to the fireworks sooner. I said that weird. I was like, fireworks. But yeah. Yeah, okay, I was trying to remember what I was talking about. Now I remember. So there's a part where some of the kids, they're at this food bar at the country club, and Mark just puts his backpack full of fireworks right next to them cooking, and the cooks don't even do anything about it, which I think that they would probably, being a cook. I feel like we would be like, hey, could you please not put that bag of fireworks by the thing that we're using fire with? I feel like they would have like caught on to that and be like, no, because you can see the fireworks. They're poking out of the bag. You can fucking see them. So that doesn't make any sense. And then of course, like, it lights on fire and they shoot everywhere, but I just think that it would have been prevented. The cooks are right there. They would have seen it. They would have done something about it. It makes no sense. Moving on. Okay, Charlie doesn't have a girlfriend anymore. So yeah, in the first movie, Charlie had a girlfriend, and they just, I guess, like, wrote her off because she's just not in this movie, and he's single now, hitting on Eugene Levy's eldest daughter in this movie. So I think that's kind of a cop-out. They just completely took away his story. They could have at least explained it. I don't think they explained it. They're just like, oh, he's single now, but they don't even say that. They could have at least said something like that. It's like, oh, I'm going through a breakup, and then he could meet the other girl, and it would make sense. But it doesn't make sense to me. Moving on. The way it's written. Let's go on. Why are they so good at camping? They're not really camping. So, yeah, the whole thing is, like I said, is a competition between Eugene Levy and his family versus Steve Martin and his family. And there's a part where they're across the lake, and Eugene Levy and Steve Martin are basically competing to have the best cook-off, which is as stupid as it sounds. And they're roasting marshmallows at the Steve Martin cabin, and at the Eugene Levy cabin they're doing fondue or something, because of course they're fancy and rich is the point of that. And they're singing back and forth, having a, like, trying to see who can be louder, I guess, which is dumb. And one of the, I think the mom or the eldest daughter or something in Steve Martin's family says something along the lines of, like, why are they so good at camping? And it's like, they're not camping. They have a huge house. They're just outside. They're just outside roasting mushrooms. I mean, roasting marshmallows. But no, they're doing fondue. The point is, they're not camping. They're not good at camping. They have a house on the lake. That's not camping. That is my point. On that note, wouldn't 12 kids be louder than 8? So yeah, like I said, they're having a singing competition back and forth, trying to see who's louder. But there's way more people on Steve Martin's team. It just, they'd be louder. Just like mathematically speaking, they would be louder. And it's like close. It's like goes back and forth. It doesn't make sense. Moving on. She's trying to hide the tattoo, but Dad would have seen it by now, because she's bending over, like, in this instant where she's trying to hide it from her dad. And they showed earlier that when she's bending down, wearing that same outfit, that you can see her tattoo. That it's a tramp stamp, basically, for lack of a better term. But she doesn't want Eugene Levy to see it. But he would have seen it. He would have. Little things like that I was just noticing in this movie. It's like, logistically, this doesn't make sense. Moving on, though. What else we got? Oh yeah, I already read that. He did pretty good kneeboarding, actually. Steve Martin, there's a scene, and it's played for laughs, where he's, like, getting dragged, and he's doing the kneeboarding. He's getting dragged by a boat, and he's struggling, and he eventually falls off the board, but he's just, like, being pulled for a bit, and he actually stays on it for a pretty long time, considering it's his first time going. And they really should have been looking at him. They're supposed to look at him. I get that that's the point of the comedy, but it wasn't funny. I'm just, like, worrying about the character's safety. It's like, someone help him. But anyway, moving on. Too many romance subplots. There's 2. They could have done one of these and I would have been fine with it, but they're trying to jam in the Charlie and the eldest daughter of Eugene Levy's romance, along with Sarah and Taylor Lautner's romance. And it's too much. It's too many romances. I don't like it. It's not necessary. They were just trying to pad out this movie. They could have padded it out with a different subplot, you know? They could have done something with Mark and animals or some shit, because later on they just like paint him as an absolute animal expert, and I don't fucking really get that. Like I get that he had a frog in the first movie, but that's the only indication we really get that he knows animals and biology and stuff and science. That's all we get. He has a frog. He's a genius. Okay, moving on. But good soundtrack. You know, they're playing those jukebox hits. I can't complain about the soundtrack. I enjoyed this line, the delivery of it. Steve Martin says it. Eggs cost money. He says that at one point. That's all my note. I just like the way he said that. Sarah's brother says hubba hubba to her. And this is another weird, kind of creepy part about the movie. Yeah, I didn't like that. That may take this movie down below 5, actually. I might give it a failing grade. Because they have the part where Sarah's getting ready for her date with Taylor Lautner. So Hilary Duff does her makeup, and she comes out and she's wearing a dress or whatever, and she's usually a tomboy, you know, but she wants to look nice or whatever for this date. So she comes out, and one of the brothers, one of the twins, he says hubba hubba, and it's like, dude, it's your fucking sister. That's weird. Don't say hubba hubba. That's your sister. I could have done without that. Because that is creepy. And they go to the theater for their date, Taylor Lautner and Sarah, and we get to see that the movie that they're watching is Ice Age, which I enjoyed that part of it, because it was like, I'd rather be watching that movie. And also they have a poster for Napoleon Dynamite behind, they have a poster for Napoleon Dynamite at one point on the wall in the theater, and it's like, oh, I would have rather been watching Ice Age or Napoleon Dynamite over this movie. But that was like around the era, 2004, 2005, when this movie came out. So it makes sense. But yeah, both those movies are better than this movie. Moving on. There's too many kids. So I already sort of said this, but there's too many kids. There's 8 on the Eugene Levy side and 12 on the Steve Martin side. And we're supposed to keep track of all these characters, plus the parent characters. And it's too much. It's too much. Moving on. I get that that's the point of the movie, to have a bunch of kids, but they added even more kids. It's like, when will you stop adding kids to the movie? Apparently now, because there's not another one of these movies, except for the remakes of the first one. I digress. Random guy in a wheelchair gets pushed. So this comedic beat, it didn't work because they didn't set it up long enough. They just have this guy in a wheelchair just like getting pushed in to the water, and it's like, first off, it's not even funny. It's one of those moments again where it's like, I'm worried about the guy in a wheelchair. I don't even know. Like, you didn't set up his character at all. Or if you did, I didn't notice, but I don't think they did. And he's in the water, and it's like, help him. And they do help him, to be fair, but it's like, it's not, they're trying to play it off for laughs. The movie's trying to play it off for laughs, but it wasn't funny. Ice Age is awesome. Agreed. It's 420 somewhere. I haven't seen all the Ice Ages. There's like 4 or something, but you know, that first one is absolute classic. It is 420 somewhere. It's 521 here. I know it's not 420, but it's close-ish. Hour and 1 minute off. Anyway, moving on. My next note is, Mark hasn't had every animal in the world. So I already sort of said this, where they're trying to paint Mark to be this nature expert. And he says this. He says that he has had almost every animal in the world. And maybe, but no. There's just no way. Almost every animal in the world? No. Just not correct. You had a frog. We saw you have a frog. That's fucking it. You're not a nature expert. They just like throw that in there at the end. Like, he knows everything about animals and the woods because it's convenient to the plot. Total bullshit. Moving on. Martas appear to have dried very fast. So this is just a classic continuity thing. People were wet in the water, and then they're running, trying to get the eldest daughter of Steve Martin to the hospital to have her baby, but then they're all dry all of a sudden. Of course, that's in a lot of movies, to be fair. But I did notice. Moving on. So, are they stranded in that raft now? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they've found a way to get back, but at the end of the movie, it just ends with Bonnie Hunt and Steve Martin on a little raft, and they're just slowly drifting off into the center of the lake. But they have no paddles or anything. Like, how are they getting back? Like there's ways, but it's just like they're just dancing like nothing's wrong. I would have been trying to worry about how we get back to the lake. I mean, the kids could like throw a rope or something maybe, but again, I would have liked to see how they got back. I want to see some of these things that they do not show. But I guess they're just stranded on that raft now. That's how the movie ends. Bloopers. I like when they do bloopers at the end of the movies, but this time they had one blooper that I actually had a note on, which is usually I don't put notes on bloopers, but my note for the bloopers is they show someone saying, "Can I redo that?" and they don't show the thing that they wanted to redo. When you show someone saying, "Can I redo that?" you gotta show the take that they fucked up, or else it doesn't make any sense to show. Just showing them, "Can I redo that?" gives you no context as the viewer. I want to see what they want to redo. Makes no sense. Alright, I think I am, after ranting about this movie, I think I definitely am going to give this a failing grade. I think I liked it less than the first one, and I didn't really love the first one. So let's give it a whopping 3.8. Honestly, it's not good. It's unimaginative, just like the first one, but maybe even less funny. Even though Steve Martin, Bonnie Hunt are trying their best to keep this thing afloat, it's just not there. Cheaper by the Dozen 2. It is on Disney Plus if you want to check it out. Cheaper by the Dozen 2. It's bad. 3.8 out of 10 dogs.